What up, what up, what up? Football fans all over the world. It is your boy, Mac the Giants fan, here with my guy, the super dope co-host, Adam Costas. Y'all know what time it is. It's time for the real deal. NFC East. Round up. Punch that intro. What is going on, everybody? How y'all feeling today out there? Welcome to another edition of the Real Deal NFC East Roundup, man, with myself, Mac the Giants fan, and my guy, the super dope co-host, Adam Costas, man. How you feeling today, Adam?
I am feeling pretty good about everything. We had the holidays, ate a lot of turkey, had a lot of family fun, but unfortunately had to witness a absolute debacle on Thursday afternoon. As a matter of fact, I can tell you my whole experience, but we'll get into that whenever we talk about that team.
Yeah, man, that's what we watched. That's what we witnessed on Thanksgiving, man. Yet again, just another disgrace, like you said. I mean, got to enjoy the time with my family. Holiday was also great. Always love spending time with the family. But then we had, there was this thing called a football game on that evening. Right around dinner. I mean, right at dinner time too. Like that was the dinner time game. You know what I mean? And yeah, that's what we. And we got a little bit more of what we've seen from the New York Giants this season. We ready to talk about that in a bit. What's going on, Daniel Barry? Appreciate you stopping in, man, as you always do, man. Thanks for the support, brother. But yeah, this football game, Giants Cowboys, man. You're talking about the bottom feeders in the NFC East division, and it looked like it. That's what you got in this football game, man. Backup quarterbacks on both sides. Just a lot of just sloppy football. But yet the New York Giants still find a way to go out there and absolutely fuck what the final score says. That 27-20, that's a mirage. This game wasn't that competitive. Don't fucking fool yourself. This game wasn't a one score game. wasn't a competitive like a normal one score game. This was another shellacking by a New York Giant opponent, man. The Cowboys put one on us on Thanksgiving, man, and anybody that doesn't believe that is absolutely delusional, man. This game was sloppy from the start. Drew Lock, I believe, didn't even pass the 100 yards passing plateau until the fourth quarter of this football game. Like I can't even wrap my head around shit like that. Like, how do you go three whole quarters of football and still have under 100 yards passing? I just don't know how the New York Giants find ways to put up statistics like this each and every week, man. The Cowboys came out and did what they had to do, took care of business, trashed the New York Giants. I mean, Cowboys doing against the New York Giants things they don't do against anybody else. Run the damn football. This is 2 for 2 for the Cowboys this year, by the way, against the New York Giants. I mean, the Cowboys are one of the probably worst rushing football teams in the NFL. I mean, they got to be amongst the bottom of the league in that category. But yet, when they play the New York Giants, all of a sudden they seem to know how to do that quite well, and that's just a big part testament of what the New York Giants you're getting out here on this field. The effort has just been atrocious. And real quick side note, just before we even go dive a little deeper into this game, probably pass the mic off to Adam because I know he's got some things he's like to get off his chest. Just this New York Giant team is the reason why I'm convinced they're not going to win another football game this season is because, okay, for instance, this past week 13 that just passed, nobody was on a bye. So you got to see the whole entire league over the course of the weekend from Thursday to Monday. And I got to sink my teeth in a lot of football on Sunday. Enjoyed a lot of good football on Sunday. Some good games was on Sunday. And you watch all the teams, and look, the New York Giants are not the only bad team. There's other bad teams in the league. There's quite a few other bad teams in the league. But there's only one pathetic team in the league right now. Only one pathetic team. And that team is the New York Giants. When you watch the effort of the other teams, including the bad ones, you at least see an effort from those football teams. Look what Carolina's done the past month of this season. Yeah, they're not necessarily winning all the games, even though they beat the shit out of the Giants, of course, like everybody else is doing. But they're punching people in the mouth. They took Kansas City to the wire. They went toe to toe with Tampa Bay on Sunday. Like this team, they at least put forth an effort on the field that you just know that at least they might not be good and they're losing because they don't have the equal talent to their opponents to fully compete, but they're competing. And I don't see that from this New York Giant team at all. And I can't imagine we're going to see it for the remainder of this season, man. Adam, if you want to talk about the game for a minute, brother.
Well,
Please,
you summed it up. I had the same thoughts this morning when I was on a space. I said almost the same exact thing, as in, how are the Panthers taking Tampa Bay wire to wire, taking Kansas City wire to wire? We show up and we can't even handle those two teams. We don't even look like we could be on the same field. Now, granted, the Giants did go down and score against the Cowboys, but let's be honest. If that were a competent quarterback out there, and instead of a backup, the Giants are getting the doors blown off. They marched down the field on both their field goal drives, and they only scored a field goal out of their ineptitude on offense as the Cowboys. But they did not really do that much. They did just enough. What the sad part about this is I'm looking at a team like the Panthers, playing their hearts out. I'm looking at a team on Monday Night Football that's 3-9. 3-9. And they're playing their hearts out. Playing their absolute hearts out. Hall of Fame players not giving up on the season. Playing for one guy who's come in and reinvigorated them. And if you don't know who that is, that's the Cleveland Browns, folks, and Jameis Winston. I know we're talking about the NFC East, but that team has nothing to play for. And they could lie down. And they're fighting with one of the best teams right now in their conference at this moment in the Denver Broncos. One team that's playing well with a rookie quarterback. And I don't want to get into that game. We'll save that and unwrap that tomorrow for premium takes. But right now, in the real deal NFC East, the Giants are not a deal. They are nada. They stink. Drew Lock did everything he could. And you know what? Here's my issue, right? Because I talked to somebody this morning. They're like, well, Adam, Drew Lock was in the offense, and he should have been prepared. I'm like, you're right. It is that. But the fact that the coach doesn't know who's starting quarterback, it's helter-skelter everywhere, right? This guy, you gave him no chance, and he failed. And he did what he could do, but he's Drew Lock. He threw a turnover to overshown who that guy is going to be a beast for the next few years. If you thought you saw the first and 13, that guy's a budding star for the Cowboys. Okay, he made some mistakes. Their line did what they had to do. The Giants were atrocious offensively.
What's up, Alex?
And then defensively, Dable put the onus on the defense, right? Oh, you got to play better, all that bullshit. And they came out and laid an egg, and I'm looking at myself like this. When I see the Cleveland Browns play their heart out for Kevin Stefanski, and the Giants do nothing against the Cowboys except for garbage time touchdowns, I have to ask myself, what's the point? Why do I, give myself this team? This team is not well coached. They don't have any leaders. They don't have a direction. They're rudderless right now. Now, I think people are going to be surprised with my thought process for their this week's game. But to me, this team on national TV, I'm glad it's the last national TV game because, folks, sorry about that on Thanksgiving. That was an absolute abysmal of a football game by both teams, but one that clearly is the worst team in football, like Max said. I mean, when I look at the Panthers, like you said, and they're out there playing, and Young's dialing it up, how can I look at the Giants and think anything else but a clusterfuck? I'm just saying, think about that. Man. I mean, look at you said you watch a lot of football. Look at every team. There's only one team that we'll talk about a little bit with the Commanders that I thought played pretty badly, like the Cowboys, but everybody else gave their effort. The Jaguars fought their ass off against the Texans. Fought their fucking ass off, and they lost their quarterback. Now, they're probably not going to win a game, but look what they did. And we can't do that. But you know what we did? We scored at the end of the game back. High five. It was a one-possession game.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about optics in this team.
Like I said, there's a lot of bad teams, but there's quite a few bad teams that aren't good. But there's only one pathetic team. And like I said, it's absolutely the New York Giants. They're absolutely pathetic. And not keep beating the dead horse, but it has to be a regime change. There's just no way you can bring these guys back and think you're going to get different results. The locker room is lost. It's gone. It's out of control. It's the wild, wild west in that bitch now. Like it's there's no hope. There's no coming back from this.
You say something interesting about the wild, wild west. There seems to be that going on, right? Right now, let's talk about the here and now, okay? Drew Lock's a starter. It took him up until Wednesday to tell us Drew Lock's a starter, which could have been told probably on Monday, since you would know this, but of course we wait till Wednesday. Tommy DeVito is limited. What are you doing? What are you doing? Is he really injured? Are you what? Who knows what's happening here? Okay, I don't. The second thing is,
I don't really think he is, Adam. You know what I think he is, real quick, Adam? I honestly think Brian Daboll might be thinking, well, I guess I better absolutely play my best guy because I'm trying to preserve my fucking job here. Yeah, at this point, like this team's a joke.
Because the thing is this: if they had started Tommy DeVito, I'd be like, the tank is on and Daboll's going to stay. But because he's starting Locke, the tank is still on because they suck. But he's going to try to fight for his job. Now, that's where in lies my thought process is, you're not going to like the result, Giant fans, this week, from me at least. It may not happen, but just know where I'm leaning. But the here and now, this team is ass. I don't think they're good. They just lost, unfortunately, Dexter Lawrence. Theo Johnson, they lost. They got Bobby Okereke is week to week. I mean, this is not a good team, and you can clearly see they're pulling guys off the field. They're going in. They're trying to go all in. Whether you think that they are or not, they're trying to go all in. I wouldn't be surprised if the other team who's bad that we're playing comes in and says, you know what, we're going to kick your ass because, we want to win. And people don't want to be shitty. They don't. They don't want, and now because we're pathetic, no one's going to want to lose to the Giants. I'd rather lose to the Panthers right now than lose to the New York Giants. You don't want that on your record. You don't want to be the guys that give up the win to the Giants, unless you're the Eagles or whatever. But we'll get that storyline down the road. So I fully expect these next 5 games, teams are going to come in and want to stomp on our throats and pad their stats and get themselves right. And have a win streak. And think about this, right? There's an interim coach. I'll just tease over to New Orleans, right? Because that's where we're headed. If the coach is 2-1 right now, lost to the Rams, won a couple games, kind of saved the season. If he goes out with a winning record, doesn't that help him for his job preservation as well? So don't think that these teams don't have things they're going to want to play for down the stretch. Okay, so the Giants are that road bump that they can get those records on, that they can get that cheap win on if you're having a bad season. At least you win a couple games against the Giants and pad your record. People do that. They want that, in the NFL. That's what they want. The NFL is not for long. So let me get a win. And these guys also know on the other team that they can pad their stats and make money. So the Giants are now the butt of all jokes. Right now, we're having arguments with fans on Ward or Sanders. Who cares? Give me either one. I'm going to be happy. Giants have a problem. Now we're fighting over whether or not Jameis Winston's going to be our bridge quarterback. I mean, right now, this team's a mess. I don't want Brian Daboll here anymore. I'll be on the record to say it. I know people don't want to go on the record to say it. I don't want him here. More so because of the leadership that's going on right now. I just feel like there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. And I feel like he knows he's a dead man walking, and putting in Drew Lock is his last-ditch effort to probably salvage whatever win he can salvage, type of deal. Because if I'm Joe Shane, because is that a Joe Shane move too? I mean, we're both getting out of here, put in Drew Lock, because something's got to change. And for me, I don't know, man. It's going to be hard to watch the last 5 games. I mean, the game after this, the Ravens, then you play Atlanta. You play a lot of teams still hungry. This is the one. I will say this. We can move on to New Orleans because I really don't.
Baltimore coming off a bye. Baltimore coming off a bye week.
Not to foreshadow anything, but next week they're going to be angry. They already said it. Lamar Jackson said it in his presser on Sunday Night Football or Sunday afternoon, whenever they played. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. So they're going to be angry. Okay, the Saints, who you play this week, just lost a heartbreaker to the Rams. You think they're going to fucking come into your building and not want to stop a hole in your ass? Alvin Kamara, who are we going to stop? We don't have anybody good on defense. And we sure as hell don't do that well on offense.
But what it is, Adam, I think what you said something a little while back, though, what it really sums up to. Nobody wants to be that team to lose to this team. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants to say, like, we lost to the fucking Giants. You know what I mean? Like, kidding me? Who wants to be that team at this point of the season when you're given what you've seen on the field from the New York Giants this season? Nobody wants to be them. Wants to be that team that lose to the fucking Giants.
Like, I know the Saints are 4-8, right? Or something like that. Right? You don't think they may not run the table, but let's say you think they're going to come in here and be like, yo, if we lose to the Giants, we're fucking pathetic. No, like I said, the guy's going to look at the interim coach is going to look at a way to get this team revved up because apparently they played better with this interim coach, and it's going to be a way for them to get on a win streak and be 3-1. But what does that coach now go back to the owner and say, look, I am 3-1. I fucking blew out the Giants. I did this. I beat this team. We went toe to toe with the Rams, up and coming. Like, that guy is looking to do that. And then the Baltimore Ravens coming off a bye week, they're going to look at the Giants like, first off, they're going to look at the Giants and yawn. And the game's probably going to be over at halftime. That's how angry they're going to be. Because they're going to be like, we lost a heartbreaker. And then you play Atlanta, who knows what's going to happen. Maybe that's Michael Penix's debut, right? And you play a Colts team that has a feisty defense.
Because the way Kirk Cousins has been playing.
Right? Even if Kirk Cousins plays, either way. And then you play an Eagle team where, not for nothing, they could be playing for the top seed in the NFC conference. Not only that, they can have Barkley running for 2,000 yards and breaking Eric Dickerson's record. So there's going to be a lot to play for probably for these next 5 games for these teams. So while I picked the Giants, I'm going to pick the Giants for some reason to win this game on Sunday because I just feel like they're going to try to fuck it up. This is going to be our try to fuck it up game for the fans. Like, we don't want a quarterback. We're cool. We're going to try to win with Drew Lock. I don't think. I don't believe it's going to happen, but for some reason I'm picking them. For some odd reason, don't call me crazy. The Saints sometimes are the Aints sometimes. I don't anticipate that happening, but that's just me. But
and it is December, outdoors in Jersey.
Right.
The Saints usually traditionally don't fare well in those conditions, but
right.
I can't be with you on that one, brother. I just New York. I can't open my mouth and even breathe the words that New York Giants are going to win a football game. When I see this football team is an absolute pathetic football team, man. Absolutely pathetic, man. And I just can't see it. But let's flip the strip a little bit. Because we then kind of went down a little rabbit hole and with these New York Giants, like we always tend to do, because that's what we Giant fans. We passionate, very passionate Giant fans. But let's talk about the Cowboys real quick. Let's talk about the Cowboys for a quick minute, man. Okay, sitting at 5-7 right now. Realistically, we know this is a bad football team. They're a pretty bad football team as well. But if somehow they can generate some kind of magic, what do you think the chances are for this Dallas Cowboy team to turn this season around with this last home stretch of the season, man?
Well, do I say playoffs? No, but they have a chance to win a couple games. I know they play the Bengals, who, while the Bengals score a lot of points, don't have a good defense, right? So not saying the Cowboys are going to go out there and be a juggernaut with Cooper Rush or anything like that. But if they, can sustain drives and score points and play a little defense, the Bengals have been known to turn the ball over. The Bengals have played down to their competition. Okay, so for the Cowboys, I think they're going to play for something. Now, they have something to play for. They have a slim chance to make the playoffs. They have to basically run the table or maybe lose one game out of their next 5 to have like tiebreakers and all that stuff. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but I think you will see more of an inspired effort going forward, especially having a couple days off as well. I thought their defense played pretty well at times against the Giants. They had their moments. I know they're playing the Giants offense. That's not saying much. It's definitely
it's not. It's really not.
But at the same time, they took care of business on a lesser team, and they can still play with the Bengals offensive line, who hasn't been great, right? The Bengals offense is very Jekyll and Hyde. The 1 minute they score 7 against the Giants, and then then they score 38. I think they're going to have some trouble, but if the Cowboys can keep it in front of them, they can hang in the game. Will they win? Probably not, but I think this is if you want to talk about having a shot. It's not like the Bengals are better than record-wise. So mindset-wise, the Cowboys can say, hey, we're a better team. Let's go out there and prove it. And the Bengals this year have been known to make mistakes and penalties at inappropriate times and shit. And not that the Cowboys have been any better, but that's the type of shit that tips the scales. And guys like Devontae Overshown playing, I don't know if they're going to get Diggs back. I don't know what his status is. But if they get a couple of those guys back healthy, their defense can be – not great, but maybe it keeps them in some of these games while they're trying to, find their way in offense. Because you think about it like this, Cooper Rush is not great. He's a game manager. He does enough to, move the sticks, and every once in a while he'll throw a pass deep, but he's not that complicated, right? But if they can keep the chains short and in their wheelhouse, maybe that's their strategy to beating the Bengals. But, they're going to be playing inspired. I guarantee they're going to be playing inspired.
Yeah, I could, like I said, I mean, right now, it's not very realistic. I mean, with Cooper Rush at the quarterback position is going to be a damn struggle week in and week out for the Cowboys. But technically, they're in position. If they were to hypothetically, let's speak, if they were to run the table, I mean, they could still finish with a 10-7 record. I mean, so that's not very, like I said, it's not very realistic, obviously, with Cooper Rush at the helm. But right now, the Cowboys still have a puncher's chance, at least. At least they can say they have a puncher's chance. Like I said, New York Giants are obviously one of the few teams that are already eliminated from any hope of postseason play this season. And I mean, the Cowboys do have a puncher's chance. If they can run the ball the way they did against the New York Giants and kind of commit themselves to the run a little bit more, I mean, and kind of just try to hit that people. And then, try to hit a few big plays with that young man, Kevontae Turpin, who seems to be a big play waiting to happen, man. They can do some things, get a little creative, man. CD Lamb is still CD Lamb as well. So you said what?
They got Brandon Cooks back. They have their tight end.
Yeah.
I think Shoemaker or something like that. They got a couple weapons where they can, if Cooper Rush, like he's not the great, like when I watch Cooper Rush, I'm not looking at a quarterback like, oh, well, let me get that guy, right? You're looking at like, it looks like a guy playing backyard football with like adults. Like he's just kind of like, okay, he can make a few throws. He challenges, but like you said, if they run the football with Rico Dow, maybe they found something in Rico Dow. By the way, the Bengals aren't great at stopping the run. Maybe that's how you beat them, right? And then you take a big play. Again, the Bengals are not a great team at doing a lot of things great defensively. I mean, go watch Hard Knocks. It proves to you exactly what's going on over there. Defensively is what we talked about. Getting guys like Overshown and Deron Bland and a couple of those guys, they get Trey Diggs back. Maybe I don't know when DeMarcus Lawrence is coming back, but if he can come back this season, might give them a little bit more of a boost. Their defense might be feisty enough to keep them in some games. They're not a great unit. They're still kind of learning the system, and they have a lot of injuries. I don't want to make excuses, but the Zimmer system is a little different. It's not necessarily the personnel he normally uses. If you go look at his Minnesota tape and some of the early Dallas days, but they're giving you effort, and they're not great, obviously, but they can take advantage of bad teams and bad offensive lines and make plays. They still have Micah Parsons out there, right? So until he's off the field, he's gonna. I read some stat over the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. He said last 3 games he had a sack, right, and then he had a sack a sack and a half in this game. So he's on a crazy tear. A guy like that can change a game. They have, like you said, they have a puncher's chance, and that's all you kind of need in the NFL, right? You know, kind of like, oh well, maybe we have a chance. You know, ball bounces your way. And again, let me just bring up their schedule real quick while you talk, Mac.
A couple other teams, you know, a couple other teams could stumble a bit, like you said. I mean, right now they're in position to can still potentially make things happen, and they've got a couple of got some pieces that can do it, man. It's just like you said, it's tough at the quarterback position, right? With the quarterback situation there with Cooper Rush, I mean, obviously he is not Dak Prescott by no means, but hey, we've seen stranger things in the NFL, man.
Well, so let's lay this out. Let's put the path to the playoffs of the Cowboys, okay? They played the Bengals this week, which is a hit or miss game, right? The Bengals aren't great, but they are good offensively. Defensively, they're bad. They then play the Panthers, which isn't a great team, but they are feisty. And if you sleep on the Panthers, you will lose and get embarrassed. They also play the Buccaneers, who will be fighting for their playoff lives. The Eagles and the Commanders, who they've already beaten once, now in their building, right? So if you look at their schedule, it's not necessarily difficult to rule out that they could do a 4-1 type of deal here where they win 4 out of the next 5, or maybe even go 3-2 and still have a shot at the playoffs, right? But if you look at it, Bengals, Panthers, this is the time if the Cowboys want to kind of keep themselves really alive, win these next 2 games, and then we can talk about a possible playoff run, because then you play Tampa Bay and you play the Commanders, who might already have had locked up a spot or may not lock up a spot, or who knows, maybe that is for the last spot to get in. I mean, wouldn't that be crazy to think the Cowboys somehow beat the Eagles, right? Or the Cowboys beat the Bengals, the Bucks, the Panthers. They go to the Eagles, lose that game, and then the game against the Commanders is winning, you're in type of game, right? That is what we would love to see. So, I'm not saying it's going to happen. The Cowboys have been kind of putrid in their bad team, but they are in a schedule where games are winnable. Do I think I can't? I don't have a feeling.
That's what I was going to say. I was just getting ready to say that those games, though, on that schedule for the Cowboys are winnable football games, because even though we know the Eagles are far superior to the Cowboys this right now with this season, how this season's been going, a division game is still a division game, and all bets are off in division matchups, man. So you just never know. What's up, Wales? How you doing, man? Thanks for popping in, man.
It's not the murderous row of their schedule. So there is, if they are, in that building rallying and saying, hey, let's believe we could do it, blah, blah, blah. This is the part of your schedule where, you have a chance to kind of catch up in the race, because there are a bunch of teams that are 6-5, 5-7, 6-6, that type of range, that are still vying for that one spot, that even though we'll talk about the next team coming up in Washington, there's still a viable chance that things could happen. The ball could bounce different ways and they get in, stranger things have happened. Not saying they will, but if you're a Cowboy fan, you got to be slightly optimistic with all the injuries that they've had and all the things going on, that there's a glimmer of hope at the end. So,
yeah, we'll see. But let's flip back to the Giants real quick, just briefly, and then we'll be done with them for sure. But I'm going to go ahead and add this clip to the screen real quick, and I'm just going to play it because I think Mike Francesca, he sums it up beautifully right here on this clip, man, about Brian Dable.
What they've done since they beat the Vikings in that playoff game, his whole career is based on that. Because since then, his career is so bad that he would not survive if he didn't have that victory. His team's performance since that point is so deplorable, is so non-competitive. And since he's called the plays, the team has been worse. It's elementary. If you can't have an offensive line that operates, nothing's going to work. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Doesn't matter what plays you call. If you can't block the guys, it's not going to work. And they can't block anybody. That's the bottom line. And I saw them in person in the Eagle game, and they couldn't stop the run, and they couldn't block the Eagles. Every time Daniel Jones looked downfield, he got hit. If there was a play that was designed to go anywhere except right to the back, 3 feet away, he was going to get hit and was going down. Every single play. And then after the game, I wait for Dave.
And I just wanted to play it because I think it just summed it up, like with Brian Dable, man. Like, and that's reality. Since that Minnesota playoff win, this team has gotten it's not doing nothing but going down. Like, it's bad. The New York Giants were a bad football team last season, but they weren't pathetic. This year they went from being bad last year to being downright pathetic this season. And to me, that's recipe for you got to get the fuck up out of here, man. You got to go. You should not be able to continue to work here when you are failing this badly. But like that's it. That's all I got for the New York Giants, man. We gonna change gears here, man. Go to 1:00 window on Sunday afternoon. This game started off, man. The Washington Commanders came out, man, and just went up
Guns
about
blazing.
28-0, I believe.
Guns are blazing.
On this team. I think they went up 28-0 on
Yep.
Tennessee. And how big was this win for Washington, and how important was it considering they had a 3-game slide? How important was it to get back on a winning track?
Absolutely huge, Mac, because we're talking about a team that at one point we thought was the best in the conference, right? At one point we were saying, well, this team, maybe they're the best in the conference. And while they have lost to some pretty good teams, they needed to come out and beat a team like this and show, hey, listen, we can still beat up on these bad teams. We still got this. We're still in this race. And these are the things that allow a winning team to do, right? Because they didn't have a letdown or a let up, right? Like Tennessee's defense wasn't playing badly up until this point. They were pretty solid, They were playing close games, and I thought, I picked them. I was wrong. I picked Tennessee because I thought the skid would continue because I thought maybe Tennessee would find something. Nope. Washington said they thwarted that. They said, no, Adam, you're wrong today. You're not gonna be right. We're gonna shellac this team. And they went out and they did that. And they had fun and they looked good doing it. And they relied on the run game. And Jaden Daniels didn't have to throw the ball a lot, but he ran and he rushed. And they had Brian Robinson, ran all over them. And they played solid defense against a bad offensive football team. And they needed this game. And it's huge because they're in the playoff lead. I think they're the last seed right now, if I'm not mistaken.
They are. They're the 7th seed.
Right. So they are clinging on to their spot. And had they lost this game, I was probably telling you, Mac, maybe they're going to fall out of favor. And they still could. But they needed this win big time to kind of reassure themselves, reestablish themselves, and kind of put some distance between them and the rest of the teams in the hunt, right? Like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and a few of these other teams that we see right now that are 6-6 or 5-7, like the Cowboys. So big game, huge game for them, and I think they needed it. And Cliff Kingsbury needed it. Let's be honest. Cliff Kingsbury needed it because they were bombarding his ass with questions about, can your offense sustain it? Will it do it? We've seen it before. It's fallen apart down the stretch. So that narrative is gone for now, for this week at least. I mean, if they have another clunker of offensive performance, it might come back to bite them. But if they can find a way to keep this offensive performance up, it's going to help Cliff Kingsbury and his rebid to be a coach somewhere down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, with this game with Washington, man, it was about, you got teams in the NBA had their big three. Well, Washington's kind of got a big three, man, on the offensive side of football. And this game was all about their big day. Brian Robinson Jr., Terry McLaurin, man. These guys absolutely showed up, stepped up, and got the job done and took it to Tennessee, man. They never had a real chance here, man. I mean, look, Jaden Daniels' numbers, man. This is the Jaden Daniels that we were seeing early on in the year before they had that skid, man. 25 of 30, 206 yards, 3 touchdown passes. He did throw INT. But I mean, he's been pretty safe with the football most of the season, so nobody's really sweating that. And then Brian Robinson Jr. 16 carries, 103 yards on the ground with the touchdown run as well. Uh, and then Scary Terry, man, 8 catches, 73 yards, two touchdown catches, man. And that's what it was all about with this football team. They were just getting the contributions. They got the big three to do the heavy lifting. Then they had the other guys, the contributors, the role players coming in and stepping up. Chris Rodriguez Jr. Where did this guy even come from? But this guy also damn near had 100 yards rushing as well, 13 carries for 94 yards, and he also got into the end zone. So that's what this Washington, they really rallied. Like you said, they were going against a bad football team, and they did exactly what the Detroit Lions did not do on Thanksgiving Day. They went out there and they made a statement. They went out there and they beat up on a bad football team the way they should. The way people expect them to beat the Tennessee Titans based off of what you know about these two teams. And I just I think what this is the game that could uplift Washington and get them back kind of rolling again a little bit, man. I'm not sure how the rest of their schedule set up, but this could be a win to just kind of get
Well,
their confidence back and get them rolling again, man.
we have the internet. We can go gladly look up Washington's schedule right now because I think, like you said, this is. I'm not going to compare them to the Lions, right? I mean, the Lions divisional game against the Bears. I
But
understand why it might have went down to the wire. I get what you're saying to dominate. You know, the, to me that's a little different circumstances. But here is what we have now. Okay, so if the Commanders, who came off the win last week, are they on a bye week this week?
yeah, they're on a bye. It's their bye week.
So look at that. They get a big win into the bye week, right? They come home after the Saints beat the Giants on Sunday, as you say. They come home and they play a New Orleans team in New Orleans at 1 o'clock. Okay, that's a game they could win, and it could be a trap game for them. This is why New Orleans needs to win the game on Sunday against the Giants, because going into that Commanders game, that's a game where if you catch the Commanders napping, because they're going to be looking at the Eagle game as like, oh, let me go win the division because now they're coming to our building, right? And you get a little overzealous. You go to the Dome, never played in New Orleans before. The fluky things happen down in the Bayou. That could be a game that if they're not careful, they could lose, right? Especially if the Saints are coming off a big win against the Giants, and they're 5 wins, feeling good about themselves. It could be a good game that they could use there. Then they play the Eagles, which could be another game that could go, may or may not go their way. It's going to be a big game. Won't be for the division. I think the Eagles are just that much better. Then you have the Falcons, a winnable game, a game in their wheelhouse, their weight class. And then you have the Cowboys. So we're realistically talking about them. They could run the table here if they wanted to. They're not. They probably lose one game. That's probably to the Eagles. They probably beat the Saints. They probably beat the Falcons, and they probably beat the Cowboys in the last game of the year. Right? Again, that's a 50-50 game. Cowboys could also win that game as well. So let's say at worst they lose the 2 divisional games. They go 3-2 the next. They go 2-2 down the stretch, right? In the 4 games that they have remaining. That's going to put them at what? 10-7. 10-7. That
Yeah.
and you're probably in the playoffs at 10-7, right? I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying they have 4 because they have a late bye, which is good for them. They're probably going to come off, dominate the Saints, but again, they could overlook the Saints and say, fuck it, we're going for the Eagles, right? And it could be a trap game depending on how it flips out, but I think it's going to be a hard-fought game. And then you still have but that's a game you probably think the Commanders going to be favored in. And then you have the Eagles. Obviously, that game's a division game. Who knows what's going to happen, but if the Eagles are playing anyway, let's just say the Eagles win. You have the Falcons and Cowboys. We're not talking about murderers row. Their last 4 games, at worst, I could see them. I don't think they're going at worst. I think they're going 2-2 in their last 4. Best 4-0, but my take is they go 3-1. They lose the 1 game to the Eagles. Every other game they win.
Perhaps, man, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out. But I think they got the chops, man. I think this football team. I mean, they believe in their. I mean, they got a guy, like I said, Jaden Dan. We've been talking about him all season, man. They got a guy they believe in, man. And I mean, this kid deserves all the accolades he's been getting. I mean,
Yes, he does.
rookie of the year it's a two-horse race, obviously, between
Yes.
him and Bo Nix. That I mean, right
No
about
pun
now,
intended.
the way they're both playing, they could go. The way it's going. I mean, between these two guys, it could go either way. To be honest, at this point, because Bo Nix has really stepped it up big time. I had to say out there, man, that's once again was my guy. You know, I believe that he should be wearing a New York Giant uniform. I want him to be wearing a New York Giant uniform. But like people said, you know, maybe perhaps Brian Dable would have found a way to ruin him too. So who knows what the way things going with this year with this team anyway. But the point is, Jaden Daniels, man, like I said, he's coming off of a couple of lackluster games. You know what I mean? So this was definitely a way to come back and have a big game and really be a factor out there for his team, man. Like I said, that 25 or 30, that that's just what you've been getting all season from this young man. I mean, I've never seen a rookie quarterback come out and just be that accurate, that with that kind of completion percentage, man, just and be consistent all season like that. I mean, that's big time veteran stuff right there, man. So we'll see what this Washington Commander team can do, man, going forward, man. But that was a big win for them on Sunday, and maybe they got the bye week to get some guys rested up, and then we'll see what they do coming off that bye, man. But ready to get to that 4 o'clock window on Sunday,
Oh, let's hit it.
the big one.
Oh, the big one.
The Eagles and the Ravens on Sunday at 4 o'clock, man. At 4:25 on Sunday, down in Baltimore. And, once again, the Eagles, man, stepping it up right now. Like I said, that cliff that they fell off last year, that cliff doesn't exist this season. This team, it just continues to get better and better each and every week. It seems like, and I mean now they're looking like a more complete football team, putting some things together. I know you're gonna go there, Adam. I know you're gonna say it, so I'm gonna let you go ahead, and I'll wait, and then I'll just I'll say my piece after you. But go ahead. Uh, let's discuss this,
I,
man. Let's
I, I
go.
think I think I think Mac is referring to folks that I bang the table for their defense every year, every week, and their defense played a solid game. I mean, you know, yeah, sans the two field goals that are missed. You know that happens. They held them. They held that team down for 2 quarters to 12 points. They held Lamar Jackson in check every time he was about to make a big run. There's Zach Bond coming out of nowhere making a tackle. They were an efficient defense that did enough to get pressure on the quarterback, create turnovers, and then their offense, what we tell you about every week, is a if you let their offense get going and you let number 26, who I told everybody is a game changer, game wrecker, home put at whatever, one of the best backs right now of our era. Hopefully he can sustain it the next couple of years, unfortunately for the Eagles, but so we can see a back of our era come back and dominate. That's what he's doing, okay? Barkley is a needle mover. He's a franchise mover. Look what he did. Mike, you just said it, right? They're not the same team. They fell off a cliff. They got a new coordinator who was with them during their Super Bowl run. He was like a consultant. So they knew the defense. They adjusted. They got their get-right game against the Giants, right? That's when the defense started to really lock in. But the defense did have some games against the Saints and some other teams where they locked down. This game, I thought they truly had a championship caliber level of defense is what they played against a team that many consider, even though they lost some games, to be a Super Bowl contender. And their offense came through tenfold. This is a game where we call measuring sticks, right? This was a measuring stick game for the Eagles. Had they lost, we'd probably say, Eagles can't do it or they're not that quite. The Eagles have cemented themselves with the win against the Ravens as they're one of the top teams, the top 4 teams in the NFL right now. I saw a graphic that it's Kansas City, Buffalo, Detroit, Philadelphia. I think that is an apropos looking.
That's accurate. I'd say that's accurate.
Right. And right now,
that's accurate.
This team, if the Eagles defense continues to play the way that it's playing, they're going to have a long run in January because the offense is a offense that you get scared of. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, and then, oh, by the way, guy number 26 who can break the game open, who had a phenomenal game, okay, breaking tackles. He's one of those guys. You keep running him the rock. You know, they used to say Barry Sanders. I wouldn't say he's Barry Sanders, but that's what Barry used to do. He would break off 80-yard run, but this guy kept chipping away, and then boom, there's that big run. There's that big play. Game is turned. All of a sudden, now the Ravens, who are playing a good defensive game as well, are now reeling, not making tackles. And listen, I know Mac still not impressed with the defense. I give hats off to the defense for altering the game enough that they kept Lamar and that high-powered offense in check.
I mean, look, it's not that hey, like I said, I give the credit that their defense has definitely come along, and it's definitely better than what we were seeing in the earlier parts of the year. But to me, it's still not necessarily what I would call a dominant group, and it's not. And to me, it's really more their offense. Their offense, I think, scares the hell out of teams. But I think their offense scares. I'm not saying they have to be. That's the point I'm making. Their defense is just good enough to complement what they do offensively, because offensively, this team, I think, literally puts the fear of God in opposing defenses. And I think the fact that their offense can score the way that they're able to score and put up points the way they're able to do so, it kind of has the opposing offense pressing a little bit and kind of having those unforced errors, those mistakes. It's not necessarily the Eagle defense that's doing it to them. It's just that teams go out there a little antsy, a little pressed. They know when you're going against the Philadelphia Eagles, you got to put points on the board, and it just kind of they get into their own teams, get into their own heads. I think, man, and it's you see when these teams playing against the Eagles, you see mistakes getting made, and I think it has a lot to do with that. It's not just because their defense is so good; it's just their defense is good, but it's good enough. It's not.
Well,
I don't consider it like. They're like the shit defensively. They're the shit offensively. That's what on that side of the football, they're the shit. Well, on the defensive side of football, they're good enough, and it just complements it. And I think it's based a lot to do on what teams know their offense is capable of. But that's my opinion.
I agree with that point to a certain extent. I do. I agree with you. Yes, the offense is a juggernaut and can put up points, and that. It's almost like the Mahomes effect, right? If you don't score points, you're going to lose because Mahomes is eventually going to find a way, right? I agree with that. However, the same can be said about the Ravens and how they play, right? Their offense has been pretty good, and that helps their defense out. So I guess in this game, what it showed me is that they could shut down an offense and not let the game get out of hand, right? And because their offense was not doing much at the beginning. And the Eagles have had that problem in the first quarter. They haven't scored many points. And so for the first quarter and a half, they kind of were struggling. That defense kept them in the game, in my eyes, and didn't let it get ahead of them too far ahead, where it might have changed the complexion of the ball game. So I'm giving credit to the defense. Well, I don't think they're the best defense in the world, but I do believe Zach Wilson's playing pretty well. I do think Jalen Carter is one of the best D tackles in football. I think their back four is playing admirable football and adequate enough football where they're a top 15 defense. Yeah, they have field goals, which would change. Obviously, the strategy is going to change, but their defense was good enough to keep them in the game and make the plays when they need to make the plays.
But see, that's the point, though. Like what Noah's brought up, though, I think that is a good point. Like, because I was actually getting ready to go there too. Tucker, uncharacteristically, who's having probably worst season I can remember him having that I can never remember him seeing. But anyway, that's another whole different point. But Tucker's missing field goals uncharacteristically. That's what I mean. Like the Baltimore was getting down. They were getting down in position to put points on the board, and then you have those unforced errors. Like I said, like the missed field goals. It's like I said, I'm not discounting the Eagle defense. They're like I said, they're a better unit than they were earlier in the year for sure. They are like they're good, but to me, I think it has a lot more to do with I think the psyche of teams playing against them, knowing that you have to score points against this football team. Like you have to score points against this Eagle team.
You're gonna wake the Eagles up.
You said what?
You're gonna wake the Eagles up.
Well, we'll see.
They're gonna hear you, and they're gonna put that into the ether, and they're like, "Oh wait, Mac doesn't think we're good. Okay, now we're gonna dominate."
Like I said, it's not that I don't. Not that I don't think they're good. I just think, like I said, I just think their defense is more a product of how great their offense is, and like I said, and I think that just kind of them helps them out defensively because teams are kind of a little, they get a little ahead of themselves sometimes, get a little antsy, and like I said, you see mistakes getting made. Like I said, Justin Tucker missing those field goals, that's uncharacteristic. That's not something you're going to see week in and week out from a guy that some people have talking about being a potential future Hall of Fame kicker. So, just things like that. And like I said, I see a lot of Eagle football, unfortunately, because I live in the damn area.
Well,
That's my local. That's what I get on. That's what I get on. That's what I get on local TV is the Eagles every week. So I get to actually see a lot of Eagle football, and I'm not. Like I said, I'm not discounting their defense. I don't want you to think that I'm discounting it. I'm just not as high on them as you are. And like I said, I'd like to see that defense against an offense like the Lions that can score those points the same way the Eagles can score those points, and probably wouldn't have those same issues that a lot of other teams playing the Eagles may have. What's going on, Miz?
Who do you think has a better defense? The Chargers, or would you say Philly? Because my question only is because the Philadelphia Eagles held Derrick Henry under 100 yards rushing, which is a feat in itself, right? His longest run was 19 yards. The week prior, they ran on the Chargers for 140 yards. And every game that they've lost or had struggled to score in, their offense has been held to under 100 yards, right? Like the Bengals, they were 35-34. Henry had 68 yards. Sunday against Pittsburgh, he had 65 yards on 13 carries, right? Again, against the Eagles, they held a guy that's been pretty dominant these last couple of weeks and coming off a dominant game to under 100 yards. I mean, I'm not saying they're great, but they've done enough to – I think they're better than last year's defense. And you put them in
definitely that.
You put them in the category of, to me, I just think their defense is allowing them to be one of the top teams in the NFC. Let's put it that way. They're good enough to stop these offenses. They're not always going to stop you, right? They're not always going to be the greatest defense, but they're going to do enough where it's going to help them out. Like I think you're comparing them similarly to what the Indianapolis Colts used to do back in the day with Peyton Manning, where they knew that they were going up against Peyton Manning. It was a track meet, and that allowed the other team to have to play one-dimensional, which fit right into their pass rushers of Robert Mathis and Dwight Freeney. So all they had to do was go collect their checks in the backfield. I get what you're saying. I think this is a slightly better defense than that because they can stop the run a little bit better, which is what allows Philly to be what they do, right? That Colts defense that you're kind of alluding to, similarly having the same effect with the offense, is exactly what they did. They would score 30 points a game, and then all they had to do was say Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis, and who are you going to double team? One's getting a sack, one's wrecking the game, right? If not the other guy, and that kind of helped them facilitate it. Right, the Eagles to me have shown they can play all types of defense. They can play close. They can give up big plays. They've ranged from many different offenses. The only offense they've really gotten blown out by was then they had a game against Tampa Bay, and then they had another fluky loss where they kind of had a couple game go over 30.
It was Atlanta, week 2, Atlanta. On Monday night,
so
week 2.
Outside of those two games that they've lost, that they kind of had, trouble in, those 2 losses, to be honest with you, right? They played pretty close. They've held some decent offenses in check and made some quarterbacks have some troubles, from Jordan Love to now Lamar Jackson. So to me, I'm like, they now have to prove to me against the Lions, right? Because right now, we could say the Lions are probably the best team in football in the conference, I guess we could say. At least I'll say that right now until proven otherwise.
But the Eagles are the best team in the league.
And I'm I hate to say this, folks. People are going to hate me, but if the Eagles do advance in the playoffs, because right now they're in the playoffs, they got 10 wins. They're in somewhere, right? They're winning the division at least. At this point, they're probably going to win the division, so they'll be in at least probably the 2 seed. If they end up in Detroit, it's going to be. I want to see. That is where will they find out if the Eagle defense is for real or if it's not. If they somehow keep that Lions team in check, the Eagles will have a chance to beat the Lions because I think the Lions defense is a defense that is more of a bend but don't break defense. Right, to me, I think the 2 things that hold the defense together for the Eagles.
Exactly. I think the Lions defense is the exact same way. I feel the same way about the Detroit Lions defense. It's just it's good enough because of what they can do offensively. I just think it just has so much. It factors in because like something you were saying about the Eagles, Derek, they held Derrick Henry under 100 yards. Yeah, they held him at 82 yards on the ground, but Lamar Jackson also had 79 yards on the ground. So it's like, to me, that's not stopping the run. That's still getting gashed in the run game.
Right.
Me,
well, I guess
I mean, and you give them big plays. Like I said, to receivers, Zay Flowers only had 3 catches in this game, but they were for 74 yards and 3 catches for 74 yards. I mean, so, and to me, it's a defense that can be had. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not good. I'm saying it can be had.
But you just said it, right? The pressure. So those 9 points are now crucial. Those missed field goals are now crucial because you're playing a better team like the Eagles, right? A team that can score in bunches, and that's what their MO is. And if the Eagles could somehow find a way to score in the first quarter, they'd be a better team than they are right now. But they can't score in the first quarter, so that's where you can kind of get your shots in is that first quarter. Once they get to that first quarter, they get lathered up kind of and get going. If they don't have any points, and that's where the defense I felt helped the Eagles out is at the beginning of the game where they kind of kept the offense from blowing the game out of proportion where you're like, now it became a track meet. And then it did enough to keep the Eagles right where they needed to be, and then the Eagles offense turned the car on and started to cook. So that's where I'm saying, at the times they had to make some stops, they made them. Are they perfect? No. But do they have some pass rush talent? Can they create some turnovers? Yes. I think they're slightly better than the Lions, but I would like to test them against the Lions because I think the Lions are doing a lot of smoke and mirrors because I think you're exactly right with that because their offense is so good. But their offense plays differently. See, the Lions are more ball control offense. They grind it out. The Eagles are very we want to score in bunches, and next thing you know, you're down 28-0, and you just it's halftime. You know what I mean? That's how the Eagles want to do. They want to be flash. They like to score, and they can score in bunches. So they can go a whole quarter now scoring, score 3 touchdowns like they did against the Giants, and then boom, next thing you know, they're up. So. And they make big plays because they take chances. Like you watch that Eagle offense, the one thing I can say about Jalen Hurts is that man is not afraid to throw the ball downfield. He is not afraid. He'll go and make some plays. Jalen Hurts had some good runs in this game. I thought this was one of the best played games for Jalen Hurts in that Eagle offense. We talked a lot about the defense and everything like that. I feel he played a very good game. A game that is he's really improved since the bye week. Let's talk about that, folks. People were talking about him, and you were talking about him, and is he not the guy? Has he not done this? Ever since the bye week, he has turned it around, and that has helped the team immensely because since he's not turning the ball over on a regular basis and Barkley's cooking, their offense has become more dynamic because he's putting the ball down the field. He's putting it where it needs to be. Not to mention he's not turning it over at the frequency. That's why their offense is cooking, right? When they were giving the ball up and against the Packers and against Atlanta and at the beginning of the year, even in Tampa Bay, their offense couldn't do anything. If they play efficiently like they did and they have a dual threat and Jalen Hurts can get out and use his legs a lot, which I thought it was the best run game I've seen him do in a few years. I think that was the best game I've seen him make some plays with his legs. That could change, right? I'm not saying do it a lot, but that's what they do. And Hurts has come a long way in the maturation of the season because at the beginning of this year, if he kept going down the road that he was going, this team's probably not winning 10 games. They're probably at 8 wins right now or 7 wins right now. But because he turned that around and stopped the turnovers, they've been immensely better team, and it's helped the offense.
Well, I mean, like you said, no matter what, they're a good damn football team, and
They hate
let's
all
just
their
face
players
it.
now.
Like I said, they're good, and now they need to get over the hump. This is a championship or bust type of team. It's set up for championship or bust. Unfortunately, they are not the only ones like that. Like you said, the Detroit Lions are staying right there in the NFC conference. But there's one thing there's no doubt about. I think one thing we both do agree fully on is that the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles are the cream of the crop in the NFC by far. And there's not the third best team to me is not even really that close to the Lions or the Eagles,
So,
in my opinion.
well, we'll probably dive into it more in premium takes, but I mean, like if they lose to Green Bay, on Thursday because they're going to Green Bay, and let's say it's snowing or whatever the case may be, in Green Bay rivalry game, shit happens. They're not afraid of the Lions by any stretch. They're 9-3, and they're saying, well, there's a chance for us to maybe steal a game here from the Lions, and maybe they falter down the stretch. And who knows? Because the Packers are 9-3. If they win out, they're 13-3, right, or 14-3, whatever the case may be.
Packers are hungry. They're hungry.
So,
Packers are definitely hungry, and they're definitely. Matter of fact, the Packers honestly could possibly be the third best team in the NFC. To be honest, that could be number 3 right there. I think it's a little bit of a distance between the Eagles and Lions, but that could very well be the third best team in the conference right now. The Packers are.
So let's play this.
They're finding ways to keep winning games.
Let's say Thursday night they win the game, right? The Packers. Now the Eagles have motivation for the rest of the year because now they're going to have a tied loss record with the Lions, which means they can get the home field bye, which means if you put this team again at home, relaxed environment, team to come out and play, it's going to be one of those things where the Lions if the Lions somehow lose some of these games down the stretch, they could kiss their playoff hopes goodbye because I don't think their defense travels well on the road. I think they play very well in their building with the loud crowd and everything like that, the dome being on top of you and being able to run the football. But if they have to go into Philadelphia because they lost to the Packers, right, these games are going to mean something down the stretch here. So the Eagle teams got to keep it locked in. And I think playing a game against Baltimore, against one of the cream of the crop in the AFC, is a confidence booster. It puts you on the map, and like we said, 4 teams: Bills, Chiefs, Detroit, and the Eagles. I don't want to predetermine things, but there are 2 other teams in the AFC that are hovering around. But what I'm trying to say is the Eagles have a lot to play for still, with records like we talk about, with the possibility of being the number 1 seed, because the Lions play the Packers. Again, I don't know if they play the Bears a second time, but who knows what's going to happen maybe in that game. Maybe that's a different game as well. So these next couple games for the Lions are very crucial in them establishing themselves as the number 1 seed. If they falter, we could possibly see the Eagles steal that spot. And then, for all we know, the championship game goes through Philly. Imagine that, right? So I'm just saying the Eagles need to win. I thought it was a big win. I thought Jalen Hurts is playing well. I think Barkley's playing well. I think their defense played well enough as championship defense where they can win games. And that's what was better than their defense last year, which was they couldn't stop a nosebleed.
Well, hopefully in a couple of months we'll get to be sitting here breaking down the NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the Lions, man. Hopefully we get to do that. That'll be some fun stuff, man. But
imagine.
But let's get to it. I mean, it's right now. It's looking like that could possibly be very well be the possibility, man. But we'll talk more about the Lions tomorrow on Premium Takes. Make sure y'all tune in 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to myself, Adam Costas, and Zion Zenith. We'll be talking about that Detroit and Green Bay Thursday night matchup and way more in depth than we just did right here. We gave y'all a little bonus preview on that just now, but just the real deal NFC East roundup. So we're gonna get back to the regular programming as scheduled. But let's talk about some games coming up this week. We already kind of talked about the Giants and Saints. You said you think the Giants somehow find a way to upset the Saints this week. And I just can't do it, man. I can't go there. I just can't fix my mouth to say the Giants are winning another football game. But just based off of what I've seen, this team like I said, there's bad teams, and then there's the New York Giants, who are on a whole different level of bad. They are absolutely pathetic, and I can't pick them to win another game this season. I can't. They have to prove to me that they're capable of even being competitive in a football game, let alone winning a football game. I just can't do it. So I'm definitely got to pick the Saints here, unfortunately. But we'll see. We'll see what happens because Saints outdoors in the wintertime is usually does spell disaster for this football team. But I think the New York Giants, like I said, they're a different kind of bad. So let's talk about a game that's a little more interesting, I guess. Maybe not that much more interesting, but let's talk about the team we were just talking about. Philadelphia Eagles, they got what I think you can really call a legitimate trap game here for the Philadelphia Eagles coming up this week. They'll be at home, but they are hosting that feisty Carolina Panthers team that is just giving everybody their best shot, man. Could this be the game? Could this be the big dog that they finally find a way to knock off, man? They came close to knocking off Tampa Bay on Sunday. And they should have won that game. They really should have won that football game. They really blew it in the end there. And the Kansas City game slipped through their fingers as well a couple of weeks ago. And you think this could be the week? Is there any chance the Carolina Panthers beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday?
It's an intriguing game. I don't think it's going to happen though, but I do want to see what Bryce Young does. If how many points he can put up. But you talk about pathetic teams, right? I want to see the Panthers and how they put up a fight against the Eagles. How they're going to do it, right? Because the Eagles, if they slip, they took Tampa Bay to the brink. They took Kansas City to the brink, right? So they might be in this game. And let's be honest, they probably should have won against last week against Tampa Bay if it wasn't for a Hubbard fumble. They won that game, but
Yeah.
I don't think there's a chance, but I'm gonna be watching the game for mostly how Bryce Young plays. No Mets agrees with me. He thinks they're gonna beat the Saints. Wow. So.
Guys got more faith than I do. Sorry. It's all been ripped away from me. Right out of my chest, man.
I don't want them to.
I used to defend him tooth and nail. I can't do it. I can't do it.
I don't want them to win. I just think that's what's going to happen because I don't know. The Giants do stupid shit. And it's the Saints. I can't trust the Saints. I want to believe they're going to come in there and do the dirty thing, but then the Saints will fumble and they'll do some shit. Derek Carr will come in and look like ass cheeks or throw a pick six like he did with the Raiders. And next thing you know, we're like, oh shit, we won the game just because of stupidity. Anyways, Panthers, Eagles. Eagles are going to – I don't know if they're going to dominate, but I do want to see how the Eagles come out as well. This is a game that we talk about. You just talked about with the Commanders, kind of beating up on the Tennessee Titans. Can the Eagles, impose their will? Mac, if this is the game they dominate and shut the Panthers out, the defense, will you believe them or will you say it's the Panthers?
I mean, I have to watch and see how it all plays out. But I mean, the Panthers have been a feisty team over the course of about pretty much the last month of the season or so. They've come on strong. I mean, they went over to Germany, whooped up on the lowly Giants. Then had their bye week, came off their bye week. People thought they were just going to come back down to reality, get tore up by Kansas City, and it was nothing of the sort. They took Kansas City all the way to pushed them all the way to the limit. Took some last second heroics by Patrick Mahomes in that game. Chiefs to even beat the Panthers. And then you see against Tampa Bay as well. Tampa Bay, I mean, needed that game, and they got it. They still got it anyway. But Tampa Bay really going into that game needed that game big time, and they couldn't afford to slip up against the Panthers. And you saw it, man. I think the best thing for the Panthers, honestly, was that Bryce Young benching several weeks ago. Man, this young man is starting to look like we see why the Panthers picked him number one overall. I'm not saying I'm all the way on the Bryce Young train, but the young man's been playing some really good, solid football over the course of the last several weeks, and I don't see why that's going to necessarily stop this week. Yes, the Eagles are a far superior football team, but I don't see why that's going to stop. And I think the Carolina Panthers get the job done in Philly. This is the week they knock off one of those big dogs, and it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that's what's going to. I think I see it going down like Carolina Panthers win this football game.
Well, if that
finally close the deal.
If that happens, I would definitely say my hats off to Bryce Young. Listen, I think Bryce Young is going to have a good game, but I don't think he's going to win. I think he's going to do what he did against the Kansas City Chiefs, have like 260 yards, be efficient with the ball, run. I mean, the Eagles defense will allow you to do that. You know, they'll allow you to get some holes running. So let's see if he does that. He's been a little headier. I'm gonna say they score 20 points. I think the Eagles are going to score like 34, but I think the Panthers will score 20 points, which is good for them against a team that's, you know, going to the Super Bowl. We agree on two different games. This is great, right? And you think the Giants are going to get shellacked, and you're picking the Panthers to beat the Eagles. I'm picking the Eagles to beat the Panthers. So one of us is going to be right on Sunday.
Then we got one more to discuss.
And there's three different answers, and one person grabs A, one person grabs B, and one person grabs C. Well, hey, someone's going to be right.
I mean, it's just that the Panthers, like I said, the Panthers, as bad as we know that they actually are, you just still see an effort that I wish we could see from the New York Giants out there.
I think if it was the Commanders, I would agree with you. If it was the Commanders, I'd agree with you. Like, I'd say, oh, the Commanders will be, lose to this team, right? I don't think. Did they even play the Panthers? Did they play the Panthers yet? Like, that's a game where I could see them losing. They didn't. I don't think they played the Panthers. They might have.
I don't know if they played them yet or not, but I
can't remember.
I'm basing it off of like my pure hatred for the Philadelphia Eagles, because there's a lot of hate for the Philadelphia Eagles. I cannot tell a lie. I cannot tell a lie there. But also, just honestly, my honest assessment is that when I watch the Carolina Panthers, they've been on the cuffs, man, of these last few weeks, that they could have very well been on a 3-game. They could very well be coming into this game on a 3-game winning streak. Very well. And the two other teams that they would have beat, because we're not the Giants, that don't really count. The Giants, we know what they are. They're dumpster juice. But the Kansas City game and the Buccaneers game, man, just watching the heart of this Carolina Panther team, man, I don't see why they're going to go into. I don't see. There's not a reason. They're definitely not going into this game intimidated or scared. They're going in fearless because they have nothing to lose. They're eliminated. They're not going anywhere. They're not eliminated yet, technically, mathematically eliminated yet. But let's face it, they're not going to the postseason. So, this team is going in fearless, nothing to lose, and they've been playing good football. They're rallying around their young quarterback who's playing the best football of his young career thus far, man. Now, maybe he's shading the doubt that they need to move on from him. And he heard them, he's reading them press clippings that maybe it's time to move on from Bryce Young, give up on that experiment now. Nah, looks like this young man, looks like he can play some ball and can play in this league, man. He's looking like an NFL quarterback is what I'm basically saying. And I think these things, they matter. They clearly matter, as we talked about Washington earlier and been talking about them all season. The quarterback position matters, and Bryce Young is starting. The light bulb looks like it has started to come on for Bryce Young, man. Andy Dalton, you're not seeing the field again unless Bryce Young actually gets injured this time, because doesn't look like he's getting benched for poor play the rest of the way, man. So I'm just basing this Panther team they've been scratching, they've been digging deep, man. And and they do some things well, like run the football with Chuba Hubbard that the Eagles don't necessarily do well defensively. So if they can exploit that and take advantage of that, I mean, I just think it could happen. I mean, and I'm going to pick it to happen. Upsets happen in the NFL, and I like this one this week. I feel good about this one, man. I think the Panthers really get the job done, man. I just do. They might. I'm gonna have fun watching the Panthers the rest of the season. That's the football season we're having right now. I gotta enjoy football by watching other teams. Panthers are one of those teams I've been enjoying watching the last few weeks, even though they've been coming up on the short end of the stick. I think this is the week they finally kicked that door in, man. But Monday night, man, we got the Carolina. I mean, got the Carolina. I can't even get the name out my mouth now. Monday night, we got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night, and this is what we were talking about with the Cowboys earlier, man. If the Cowboys have any semblance of preserving this season, man, it has to start with this game right here on Monday Night Football against the Bengals. How you see it going down, Adam?
Well, I mean, if they can get pressure on Joe Burrow, the game might be able to be put in their hands a little bit. Defensively, the Bengals aren't a great team. Defensively, look what they did the last game. They couldn't stop anybody, and that's the reason why they lost. Right? They can't stop a nosebleed, and the Cowboys, again, like we talked about, aren't a great offense right now. The Bengals don't stop the run very well. You have Rico Dowell, who's kind of lathered up now. Guy got a touchdown at his first 100-yard game, starting to kind of wear defenses down. As he's a kind of a heavy-footed runner, right? He's not the fastest guy, but next thing you know, he's got 5 yards, right? So that's why I think their game plan is going to be slant routes to Turpin, to Brandon Cooks, who's back. Try to ease up on CD Lamb, who's a bit banged up, right? I mean, they've had 10 days off to prepare. I think the Cowboy defense, they're going to play inspired. And it's not like, again, it's not like the Bengals are the offense, their quarterback's playing at an MVP level. There's no doubt about it. Joe Burrow's actually having a fantastic season that will go unnoticed because his team is not playing well, right? And of course, they're going to blame him, but you can't blame him because he's doing his part. The defense is now letting him down, right? People always say, well, the quarterback. If you do your part, you win games. Joe Burrow hasn't been the problem in Cincinnati, okay? Like, he'll put up 35 points. He's throwing it to receivers. He's jumped past some guys last week. But then the defense doesn't stop a nosebleed. And so Cincinnati does have this propensity to sometimes play down to their competition. And their offensive line has been a bit leaky. And with Micah Parsons, maybe you get a turnover. Maybe you get a fumble. Maybe you get Joe Burrow trying to force it and play hero ball. And if they steal this victory against a team that's not overly bad but not overly good, kind of in the middle of a game where they can, even though they have a backup quarterback, they have a chance to win. With that being said, it's hard to pick against Joe Burrow and the Bengals for me. But I do think there is a path to victory for the Cowboys. Will they execute it is the case. It's really going to come down to their defense and their offense scoring points. If their offense can move the ball efficiently and they can put touchdowns on the board, they'll win. If they try to win because of Audrey's field goals and try to out field goal them, right? They could also, I mean, he's a weapon. If it's a rainy, crappy game, that might benefit the Cowboys because they got a kicker that can kick from the moon. And the kicker for the Bengals has been pretty bad. It's hard for me to it's hard for me to pick the Cowboys. I'm going to go with the Bengals here, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys won to save their season.
Here we go. This is a game that I will dub on Monday night as the Disappointment Bowl because these are by far two of the most disappointing teams in this 2024 season. Two teams with far higher expectations than what we're seeing from them. But that's Eagles have a lot of injuries too, and I hate to keep referring to those stupid motherfuckers, but seemed like that next man up thing with that team just always seems to work out perfectly. I mean, they built great depth on that football team. So when people go down, it's like they don't miss a beat anyway. But enough of that. Enough patting the Eagles on the back. Okay,
No,
Bengals Cowboys, man. Bengals Cowboys here. I think the Bengals win this football game. I think too much offense. I think it's just gonna be too much offense, and the Cowboys aren't gonna be able to score enough points here with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Mike Gesicki. I think just way too much offensive firepower from the Bengals in this game is going to be, and the Cowboys don't play great at home. I mean, Thanksgiving on Thursday night against the pathetic New York Giants was their first home victory of the season. So it took playing the New York Giants for them to get their first home victory. Put that in a perspective and let that sink in. So back here in Dallas and Texas Stadium, they have not been performing very well all season. And let's face it, they didn't perform that well against the Giants either on Thursday night. They was just that they was playing against the Giants. Didn't take much of an effort. But this Bengals team, I think, what they can, like you said, I hear everything. The defense is not great, but Cooper Rush is not going to be able to take advantage of that, I don't think. And I just think Joe Burrow, like you said, he's been putting up insane numbers all season, and like you said, it will probably go unnoticed for the most part due to how bad the football team has been. But I think they get the job done here in Dallas and pretty much put Dallas out of their misery. That's just how I feel about that.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, again, 10 days off, funky things happen. Not saying Cooper Rush is great, but the Bengals, again, have played down to their competition a little bit. And they're very much not a week-to-week team. They do score a lot of points, and then there'll be games where they don't score a lot of points. And we'll see what happens. The Bengals prime time, Cowboys prime time. If they get the thing about the Cowboys that has been interesting is the game that they are in, their defense keeps them close enough, right? And it's just like you think about this Giant game. Let's refer to that. If they had a competent quarterback, they're probably up 14-0 instead of 7-6, right? But because they're not the greatest offense or Cooper Rush can't hit a pass, those are the things holding them back. And if they can get one of those in on the Bengals and not be a liability, because they have scored 27 points the last couple games, right? So they are putting up some – even if it's ugly, somehow they're getting into the end zone. They're making it work out. They played against the Commanders. They scored 30-something points, whether that be a kick return. Their offense moved the football just enough to get in the end zone, right? And they put up 20 points. I think if fluky things like that happen to the Cowboys, a block kick or, interception or a turnover, that's the kind of game that the Cowboys have to play. I don't know what Bengal team's going to show up. And that's what kind of scares me. I know Burrow's going to show up, but I don't know what kind of Bengal team's going to show up.
I guess only time will tell. We'll see on Monday night, man. But like I said, the disappointment bowl big time here. These are two teams, man, that just have not lived up to expectations coming into this season, man. These were teams expected to be at the top of their respective conferences, in the top end of their respective conferences, I should say, at the very least, man. And we're looking at two teams here that neither one are going to see postseason play most likely, but they both still have puncher's chances, I suppose, and we'll see which one gets the last punch in on Monday night. I think it's going to be the Bengals, though, because I just think it's too much offensive firepower, and that's what's going to take them over the top in this one, especially if Dak Prescott was still playing, in the lineup for the Cowboys, then, yeah, I probably feel a little differently, but Cooper Rush, I just don't see the Cowboys being able to score enough points to keep pace with the Panthers. I keep talking about the damn Panthers with the Bengals, with the Bengals. I just don't see it. I mean, I mean, you saw even in the game on Pittsburgh, Joe Burrow with 3 huge turnovers in that football game, but yet it still took everything the Steelers had. It took a Herculean effort from Russell Wilson for the Steelers to win this football game. So the Bengals just they think way too much offense. So for the Cowboys to handle, but we will see. That's why they play the game. You got any final thoughts before we get ready to wrap things up, Adam?
Not really. Just that I'm intrigued on how the rest of the season plays out for the New York Giants. Giant fans slog through it. Craig, I know that you don't want them to win games. I'm picking them to win by just a feeling I have. I don't want them to, but don't want to win games. You want to have a chance to get one of these 2 quarterbacks. There are more that we can talk about in the offseason, but right now the top 2 guys are what you want. So the mission is simple. Get that first, second, or even third overall pick so you can get one of these guys. Period. End of story. As for the rest of the NFC East, it's been a joy to watch this season and how the different manifestations of seasons unfolded. At one point, we thought the Eagles were going to be a joke, right? Oh, they're not going to stop anybody. Look at this, blah, blah, blah. Here they are, 10-2, right? Washington got blown out the first portion of the first game of the year. Absolutely blown out, dog walk by Tampa Bay. We thought, we're fighting for third place with that team. They're never going to do anything. And here they are fighting the 7th wild card spot. So, and then you have the Cowboys who were, picked to be Super Bowl contenders by me and many others to, Mike Zimmer is going to change the defense and Parsons and new offensive line and blah, blah, blah. And here they are struggling and limping towards the end. It's just fascinating to watch. But what I can tell you is, and I'll land this plane just for the Giants here, Hard Knocks is one of the worst things that ever happened to the New York Giants. Everything that they've done has been played out on the field. The NFC East has laughed at you. The entire league is laughing at you. And it's just time to make a change. And let's hope that the Saints can get the job done on Sunday.
It's like you said, man. Like you just hit the nail on the head with that. Hard Knocks exposed this football team, man. It exposed this football. It absolutely terrible, man. It was not a good choice to put this team on that kind of a platform because everybody saw the cracks, and now those cracks, they're not cracks anymore. This just busted wide open, man. That's why I said change has to come. There's no other solution at this point. You just can't. You can't rebound from this. I don't feel like I just don't. I just don't see how you can rebound from this. Like I said, once you lose the locker room, I think that's it. That's just the ultimate offense. That's the ultimate fireable offense. The coach, you have lost all control, man. Like I said, you got rookies speaking out. I mean, it's just terrible. It's terrible. And I just don't see how you can. And like I played the clip from Mike Francesca earlier, like you said, since that Minnesota wild card game, the reality is this team has gotten absolutely just worse. From that point on, it's been a downward spiral from that point on. And now it's not just a spiral, it's completely out of control. It's completely out of control. The last time the New York Giants had the number 1 overall pick, my mom wasn't even alive. So put that into perspective.
Wow.
Like, that's where this team has fallen to. You hear people tell you nightmares about how bad this team was in the 70s. Well, apparently they still weren't quite as bad as the shit we're watching right now. A change has to come. And I hope John Mayer is smart enough to understand that. Because, I mean, unfortunately, I wish he could go too. But he's the owner, so he ain't going to fire his damn self. But get rid of Joe Shane. Get rid of Brian Dable, man. And we got to figure this thing out and build this thing back up all the way from the bottom, man. It's got to start. No, not, like you said, none of that competing and rebuilding at the same time shit. It's got to be rebuilt all the way from the bottom. Giant fans, we've been patient, but we're going to have to be a little more patient because this is a project. This ain't no, this ain't like this. It's a project. This team is a mess, and a new foundation needs to be laid. So that's all we got, man. We'll be back with y'all once again next Wednesday, same time, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm Mac the Giants fan. This is my guy, the super dope co-host Adam Costas, and we'll be back next Wednesday, man, with another edition of the Real Deal NFC East Roundup. Make sure y'all go and subscribe to myself, Adam Costas, and the Hardcore Sports Network, man. Putting y'all on, man, with this right here each and every Wednesday, man. And you can catch me and Adam tomorrow night on the Premium Takes podcast as well at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time with our co-host, Zion Zenith, man, our fellow horseman, man. We talk about a few just all kind of different random topics in sports, man. A lot of football talk. It's football season, but talk about other things too, basketball, whatever else, man, might be going on in the world, sports world. So tune in for that, man. Premium Takes podcast tomorrow for sure. And I'm Mac the Giants fan. This is my guy, Adam Costas, and we'll see y'all next week. Peace! I'd like to thank you all for listening. If you was feeling this, please take time to subscribe and smack them likes. Feel free to drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to ring that bell so you know when I'm dropping new content. It's your boy, Mac the Giants fan. You can find me on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at Mac the Giants fan. That's MacDa Giants fan.